Palm has announced the Pixie, the second WebOS smartphone. The Pixie is similar to the Pre, but in a monoblock and thinner form factor. The camera is downgraded to 2 megapixels, the display is small, and it doesn't have Wi-Fi. Like the Pre, it will initially only be available from Sprint in the USA. It will, interestingly, ship with a new Facebook application. HTC has given its latest smartphone a name it can live up to, Tattoo, because people who buy it will be invited to design their own personal skin for the phone. The Tattoo is the company's 4th smartphone to use the Android OS and the 2nd to use HTC Sense, the company's add-on front end, as featured later on in this show. The Tattoo 3G has a 2.8-inch resistive touchscreen, 3 megapixel camera, digital compass, FM radio, Wi-Fi, 3.5mm audio jack, and micro SD expansion. Sony Ericsson has formally announced the much-rumoured Xperia X2, the follow-up to the disappointing X1. The X2 will come with Windows Mobile 6.5, will have a 3.2-inch touchscreen and a new 3D interface, building on the old X1 panel system. In terms of specs, there's the usual sliding QWERTY keyboard, looking better than ever here, I have to say, plus an 8-megapixel camera that also records videos in VGA at 30 frames a second. TV out, Wi-Fi, GPS, and micro SD. Impressive stuff, though clever money has this as the very last Windows Mobile device Sony Ericsson will release. LG has announced its first Android smartphone, the GW620, yet another device with full touchscreen and sliding QWERTY. The display is smallish at 3 inches though, and with the normal Android resolution of 320 by 480. Plus the usual Wi-Fi, GPS, 3.5mm jack and 5 megapixel camera. On the software front, there's obviously none of HTC's additions, so it's very much a bare bones Android experience. As promised, Motorola have also announced their first Android device, the Clique, or Dext, depending on market, with again a similar form factor and virtually identical spec as a 3.1-inch 320 by 480 touchscreen and slide-out QWERTY keyboard, Wi-Fi, GPS, 5 megapixel, etc. More innovatively, a new, quote, Moto Blur system syncs contacts, messages, feeds, photos and more from Facebook, Twitter, Yahoo, Gmail, email, Last.fm and more, putting all of this information apparently together on the Clique's home screen. Nokia N97 owners have been walking something of a RAM and flash memory tightrope since the device's introduction, though see a big feature of mine here on All About Symbian for some tips on keeping up to speed on the device. However, the version 20 upgrade is nearly upon us, it seems, as evidenced by this video walkthrough. More flash memory free, more RAM free, kinetic scrolling and all this, new widgets, better handling of album art and music player and more. Let me start by saying that the HTC Hero is the best Android-powered smartphone yet. From slick software to small but perfectly formed hardware, chin and all, the Hero is a phone that can hold its head up with the best of Nokia and of Apple. However, just because it's the best Android phone doesn't make it something you'd necessarily want to give up your N97 or iPhone for. At only 14mm thick for much of its length, the Hero is surprisingly thin, especially once you consider the battery is 1350 mAh, enough to power it comfortably through a day's heavy use. This is the white Teflon version, by the way, designed to stop fingerprints, the bane of the modern age. The screen's oleophobic too, i.e. it also resists grease. In theory, in practice I couldn't see much difference after a few days of use. The screen is capacitive, which is good, but it's not transflective, which is bad, which means that, as here, you can see it rather blacks out in sunlight. At 3.2 inches, the screen is well suited to the small form factor, though. That does mean that the necessary on-screen keyboard is very cramped. HTC have put in word-guessing intelligence like on the iPhone. This helps a lot, but it can't help for names, passwords, web addresses, and so on, sadly. As with any Android phone, a trackball is seemingly mandatory, even though it's not strictly needed. At least HTC also use it as a camera shutter button, of which more later. I must stop touching those volume buttons. Menu, back and search buttons all enhance the touchscreen, though the positioning of the back key here is infuriatingly cramped to a right-hander like me. But what an interface, if you like fiddling, that is. Get this, in Sense UI you've got half a dozen scenes, home, business, social and so on, each of which has half a dozen home screens, each of which can have various widget shortcuts and displays added. Go with the defaults and it's easy to be up and running. But get hooked by the fiddling bug and you could waste hours getting the perfect combination of scenes, home screens and widgets. Phew, it's getting warm out here now. Changing scene modes on the Hero takes several screen taps and 6 or 7 seconds, so it's best, to be honest, to just set up your favourite home screens and widgets and leave it be, to be honest. As with the Nokia N97, also with the potential to be widget hungry, you can pile on the internet connected widgets, but you'll soon discover exactly the same trade-off with RAM and performance as in the N97. Keep your home screens lean and mean, and your Hero will go faster. Under the hood, the Hero is essentially the same as the Magic, reviewed recently, with a 528 MHz processor and 288 MB of RAM, which should be enough. Apparently there's a Hero update waiting in the wings to optimise things further. Sadly, such an update will have to be applied by a PC and will wipe your data and settings, since there's no over-the-air update going on here in the Hero. The raw applications are much as on the Magic, with the basic PIM apps, though no file manager, a photo and video viewer, a slowish WebKit-based browser, plus the Google suite of Mail, Maps, Talk and YouTube. Interestingly, there's also a Peep Twitter client which works quite well, and a Footprints photo geotagging wizard. Oh yes, and Quick Office's first cut at Office viewers for Android. All a bit patchy if you ask me, but it's very early days. There's also Tita, a marble game to show off the accelerometer. The same sensor does also rotate the core Android applications, here's Google Maps, but sadly not the HTC written ones, and this has a direct impact on usability, since you usually have to make do with the portrait QWERTY keyboard and not a larger landscape one. On to media next. Your smartphone these days is often also your camera, your camcorder and general source of entertainment. There's a 5 megapixel sensor here, but no shutter button. Instead, you press in the trackball and wait. And wait, because focusing is all done after asking for the photo. So a 2 or 3 second delay, and that means your subjects may have moved or disappeared altogether. It's not ideal anyway. Photos are a little washed out, but better than on most HTC hardware. Video quality is back to the usual HTC standard, sadly. So this is a test in rather bright winter sunshine of video capture on the HTC Hero. 352 by 288 pixels by between 10 and 15 frames a second. Quality isn't brilliant, audio quality isn't brilliant, and frame rate isn't brilliant, but it's video. Video playback is quite good for MP4 files, though I had a few issues with WMV videos, and Flash videos were unwatchable via the Flash implementation here in the browser. And as a UK resident, I was disappointed to see that the Hero isn't iPlayer compatible. Music playback is via a welcome 3.5mm jack at last, HTC, and is okay, though there's no EQ to play with as there is on most Nokia phones. There's only a mono speaker on the back, but it's quite loud and great for listening to MP3 podcasts. Actually getting these music and podcasts onto the Hero is tricky, in that you have to fiddle around with one or more PC-side media managers. Emphasising the social side of the Hero, when setting the device up, you're asked for your Twitter, Flickr and Facebook login details, in addition to your Google ID. It's a lot of data, but HTC's had a good stab at integrating each of these as needed. So for example, your contacts' Facebook statuses are shown in the People application. But it's a little half-hearted overall. For example, there's no actual Facebook application or widget here. Again, look for the promised update to tighten things to the same standard as Palm's WebOS. Sense UI and Android aren't as elegant as the iPhone OS. The reliance on menu and back buttons drag it down to the levels of normal mortal user interfaces, which is fair enough. These are smartphones, and more functionality usually means more complexity. And as a smartphone, the Hero is a decent crack at a solution for the trendy, modern professional, despite being let down a little by the immature UI and the incomplete operating system. The Hero is the best Android phone available so far. The best is, as they say, no doubt, yet to come. If you've enjoyed watching the phone show, then please support me by sending any spare PayPal money to slitchfield@gmail.com or using the buttons on the site. Thanks a lot.